Hey everyone, happy Wednesday. Welcome to another live edition of Techstrong Gang. You know, one of the nicest things I like about doing these live is while I'm saying that, I don't have to think in my mind, well, you're going to see this tomorrow. What day is tomorrow? Even though I recorded a Wednesday, I got to say happy Thursday. But no, it's Wednesday and happy Wednesday. I've got a great gang to line up with you here today. We've got our man in the Valley, John Swartz, West Coast Bureau Chief, nonetheless.
Mike told me to put that title on, so I'm just obeying orders.
Oh, okay. I didn't know we had a bureau. Does this mean we have a bureau?
Mighty Bureau of One.
He wouldn't take Czar, so I had to come up with something else.
All right.
Wow, that's a blast from the past. Yeah.
It's not a West Coast Federal Bureau. Anyway, the lady in front of the brick wall is our one and only Teri Robinson. Hi, Teri.
Hello.
And of course, we have the Dean, Mike Vizard, home in New York still, where it's probably a lot colder than it is here. Gang, welcome. You know, a lot of the news seems to be going on over in Davos. A lot going on in Davos. Some people are behaving like statesmen, some people are behaving like children, and there's a little bit of everything in between. But a lot of the discussion, Mike, seems to be around the notion of sovereignty in both technology and non-technology. But IT sovereignty is really heating up.
All right. Well, because we are live, we can now say this just in, because it quite literally just happened minutes ago. But President Trump committed to at least not trying to take Greenland by physical force. Now, I imagine there's other ways of force to go about doing that. And there's been a lot of statements from other leaders around the world about the end of, shall we say, I think the Canadian Prime Minister called it Pax Americana. And when you look at all this stuff from an IT perspective, there's clearly going to be disengagement with U.S. IT services and platforms as we go along. You hear phrases like sovereign clouds. You hear about AI sovereignty as an issue. And AWS now has a version of its platform that will run entirely in Europe. And IBM is talking about using Red Hat OpenShift to enable folks to not only run their own IT, but also use their own people to run that IT in some sort of on-premise environment that they may set up. It feels like, we're looking at this kind of move away from the great cloud computing environment where workloads were distributed everywhere, where now, the physical boundary of a country determines where workloads are going to run, and that has all kinds of implications for costs. But Alan, what's your take on what's going on here? Is the world coming apart at the seams?
Mike, if it was only that easy to talk about sovereign clouds and sovereign AI, I've written about this before and I've spoken about it before. What we're really seeing is the balkanization or the re-balkanization of the world. And IT is part of that world. IT doesn't exist in a vacuum. Our technology doesn't exist in a vacuum. And when the world is balkanizing, so is our IT. And, a lot of people out here, you didn't pay attention in history, I bet, or you didn't like history or whatever. I use the word balkanization, and it may be a word you heard before, but you really don't know what that means, right? Balkanization refers to what happened. A lot of us grew up with a country called Yugoslavia. A lot of you probably don't know what Yugoslavia is. But Yugoslavia was a country that kind of united the Balkans after World War II. Countries today like Croatia and Serbia and Montenegro and whatever, there you go. But really, the balkanization occurred around World War I or prior to World War I, right? Up to that point, most of Europe and most of the world was controlled by empires. You had the Austro-Hungary Empire, the Russian Empire. You had, the Ottoman Empire. World War I, or right up, and it really led to World War I, is you had new modern countries coming on, like Germany and Italy, that were never really a full-blown country before. And it man, it broke up the world into little pieces. Now, after World War II, we were very lucky. We had basically what we call a bipolar world, and I'm not talking about something you got to take medicine for. You had a bipolar world where you had basically the Soviet Union and the West, led by the US. And that new world order, as Poppy Bush called it, brought probably the most prosperity and peace, relatively speaking, that humanity has ever seen, and brought on the greatest technology revolution, the digital revolution, the internet. All of these things that make our world possible today came from that. We're talking now about going backwards, back to a balkanization, where as Mark Carney said, and Mark Carney's speech was, I think, one for the ages. Every country is going to have to rely on their own fortress, but not everyone is going to be the U.S. and these spheres of influence, in spite of what some politicians may want to do. Mid-sized countries using what we call variable geometry, right, which was something Anthony Blinken, as former Secretary of State, spoke about, are going to be able to band together on certain issues, not all issues, to be an offset to a superpower or what have you. But all of that aside, Professor Shimmy will sit down in a minute, but we're all the loser for it. We're all the loser for it, because what made the internet great is I could get on and talk to someone in Australia or Bosnia or Moscow, for that matter, or Beijing. And I made so many friends over the last 30 years. I've been around the world. At every city I went to, I knew someone because I met them online. And I had that relationship, whether I was in China or Australia or anywhere else. John?
Remember that era? Oh, sorry, Mike. Remember that era, and we all do, when the internet first came along, and then Apple was talking about bringing the world closer together, or one community. I feel as if, as Alan said, we're moving back in time to the era of the walled gardens, where we have these tech moats. And in a sense, Trump touched on that a little bit in his speech, his meandering, low-energy speech, where he actually talked about we have AI locked up. And in a sense, raises all these alarms where we kind of set these fortresses, as you said, Alan, where we're concerned about data access, legal jurisdiction, over reliance on US-based tech providers. And it was fun. It was sad to me too, because he pointed out, he gave a shout out to Larry Ellison in the crowd. And I think about Larry Ellison was, quote unquote, the best friend of Steve Jobs. And they were different people, but they were kind of like-minded in terms of this pursuit of a world community brought together by technology. And now, in a sense, we're carving things up, just as we were carving up. We're going to carve up the world like Greenland. Now we're thinking about carving up the sovereign data and AI. And to me, it was just the state of things it's so sad to me right now. It just runs completely counter to why I love technology and the idea of bringing people together, or actually educating them in ways they weren't able to be educated before. Right. And the open-mindedness, now we've become a closed-minded approach. Sorry, it just really burrs my. Yeah.
It is so upsetting, because we've worked so hard, I think, to break down barriers, especially those that are artificial, right? And to create this sort of community and this place of learning. I mean, just think of what the internet touches and what AI touches, and the opportunities that gives people who have no opportunity. And now, where are we? And so, yeah, I was thinking a lot about the president's speech, which I found alarming and sad and terrible, all at the same time. But, I feel like he thinks he's building a stronger, U.S., right? A stronger America. And it's just the opposite, because what ends up happening, I think, especially when you build these fortresses, is you decay from within, and
at one point, Terry, I'm sorry. He was talking about the B-47. He was talking about weapons and our superior military means. And in a sense, I almost got the impression, and maybe that he wasn't intended, but it clearly came through to me, was he was kind of flaunting AI as part of a defense system or part of a weaponization. And it just, to me, it was just so alarming going down that path. And it's sovereign data and sovereign AI is on the brains of most of the smart people in tech right now. And to see it kind of twisted in this bastardization was just appalling.
Yeah.
So one of the things that comes through there, and what John pointed out is, so he says we have AI locked up. I'm kind of like, that's not possible.
It's like squeezing sand in your hand, right? The grains run through.
He also said that until a couple of years ago, no one had ever heard of AI.
Well, he
has, and if he didn't, of course,
know.
no one else did, because he is one of the smartest men on earth. But here's the deal. Guys, I remember being in Beijing 10 years ago with friends of mine there. And we needed to go out on the internet to look up some stuff around DevOps. I said, don't you worry about the Great Wall, the firewall? They laughed, right? The firewall is for politicians to talk about. Everyone there VPN'd around it. It didn't present any barrier to them at all for the most part. I'm reminded of what Thomas Friedman said in the Flat Earth series of books. Don't underestimate the power of prosperity, the power of lifestyle. Every single person on earth wants to have that American dream lifestyle, not necessarily to be American or to live here, but it's universal. People want to live in peace. They want to have material goods. They don't want to have hunger hanging over their heads. They want some sort of freedom, right? Personal mobility. And you can't erect barriers around that. And you can't lock up technology because it's like fluid. It goes to its lowest level. It will go around. So here's the good news. These guys can talk till the cows come home. That genie's out of the bottle, right? The Chinese company, what was it? DeepSeek. DeepMind, DeepSync, whatever it is. They already proved it. You can't lock this stuff up. And the tighter you squeeze, it's kind of, kung fu-ish. The tighter you squeeze, the more it's going to ooze out. So if you're going to pursue that, go right ahead. A waste of time. Unfortunately, the sovereignty issue, back to the main thing, the sovereignty issue is real, right? My friends at SUSE kind of led the way on European sovereignty here, and my Andreas Prince, good friend of ours, is leading up these SUSE efforts on it. They're partnering with AWS on this AWS European sovereignty model. It's real, right? But we're going to have sovereign AI too. They're going to build their own models.
Yeah.
This is like, think about it. Go back to what I said about the New World Order. How fantastic is it when you really think about it that here we are 75 years more, 80 years, maybe more, after the first atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima, that we live in a world where maybe 10 countries have developed atomic weapons. Why haven't other companies, why don't we see more proliferation of atomic weapons? Because that New World Order did a great thing in the non-proliferation treaties and keeping that genie as tight in the bottle as you can. It worked there. When you don't have that world order, though, of people signing on, of enforcement, of doing it, then it runs wild. The genie's out of the bottle. That's all I got to say.
I would say, though, you're also going to probably see soon companies springing up in Europe that build, things like servers using ARM processors that people will put into on-premise data centers. Because, they'll look at Dell and Hewlett-Packard Enterprise and say, those are American companies, and we're going to need some infrastructure ourselves. In the meantime, we're going to use these kind of little micro clouds that AWS is creating for them. And I'm sure that Microsoft and Google will follow suit, where, the control plane stays within a particular country and it is not affected by that famous U.S. Cloud Act that people talk about.
That's what's going to happen. And you know what? This whole idea of this post-World War II global trade, open markets, it's going away. And there's going to be a lot of losers here in the U.S. Regarding it too. Don't kid ourselves.
It's just another undercurrent, I think, of what's going on is it almost seems like it's this era of the AI Cold War, U.S. versus China, and line up behind your suitor, and consequently, it's going to filter down to the companies and the countries, and create this tumult and these isolated regions of data. I remember we had the ServiceNow president on utilizing AI podcast yesterday, and he was talking about the significance of governance and control in AI adoption. And he's sovereign data and sovereign AI, he said, were just so critical right now. And he was really concerned about where things are headed. So I'm sure he's speaking on behalf of a lot of executives.
Well, absolutely. It's going to be a lot more expensive to deploy a SaaS application because I got to have different data sets in every country. So the cost of that's going up. So I'd be concerned too.
Yeah.
Interesting. But here another, you know what? In spite of all this talk, China keeps exporting, baby. Right there, their exports went up bigger than ever. They had a bad real estate situation, but someone's buying this stuff. I think the real question is, do we really become Fortress Earth where we have all these little fortresses, or companies that want to play nice together continue to play nice together, and companies and countries synonymously that don't want to play nice together become isolated?
I think that's the way it's going to be. I think that's what Carney was hinting at yesterday, that yes, we'll have these fortresses, but he doesn't want Canada to be that country that builds that fortress and those walls so high, like lower them and connect with the like-minded countries.
Variable geometry. That's what it's called.
Variable geometry. That's exactly right.
But let me just also say this though. Carney's speech was, that's a leader you can get behind. He's not talking to the kindergarteners and the second graders.
So there's a critical ruling this week, then, what the Supreme Court's going to say about tariffs, because this is the hammer that we're using to bludgeon everybody in line.
Yes.
Mike, I'm going to take issue with that. The only people we're bludgeoning is ourselves. I saw a recent report, 98% of all the money collected on tariffs have come from U.S. citizens and companies.
Right. He should be giving back $2,000 to everybody.
$2,000? You're ruining, hey, we're out of time on this segment. We need to move on before it gets really out of control. I wanted to talk about something less controversial, Mike, maybe countering ICE intelligence. And is ICE intelligence an oxymoron unto itself? I don't know.
In one sense it is.
Definitely.
It could be, but regardless of what side of this issue you're on, it's interesting that tech is playing a bigger role, and both sides are now using tech to surveil each other, right? The people who want to protect the immigrants have been using it to track the movement of ICE. Apparently, ICE now has developed its own systems where it can track what's going on in individual neighborhoods as they look for people and who's actually communicating so that they can maybe find those people. It's getting a little crazy. There's a new letter out from 40 different data privacy advocates and their organizations saying that ICE needs to not do this because, it's just violating fundamental principles of our civil liberties. But Teri, you've got a post on this. Others are writing about it. What's your assessment here? Yeah.
So, I have to start off with the irony here. ICE has complained mightily, and that was certainly what happened sort of right before Renee Good was shot. Her wife was filming this ICE agents and other people were there observing them and tracking them and whatever. And ICE has complained, and the president has complained mightily about, people doing this. But it is so ironic because ICE itself is really ramping up its surveillance of citizens and of neighborhoods. I think the piece that I wrote talks about a couple of pieces of technology that they're using, Weblock, and I think it's Weblock and Tangles, right? And one lets them track devices in an area, in a neighborhood. I mean, they know when you are sleeping, they know when you are awake, they know when you've been bad or good, so be bad, for goodness sake. Let's do that. But they also, one of the functions lets you map, or it maps all of this activity. So it's as easy as, plotting a point or a circle or whatever for a device or a person, and just, it's all mapped out for you. And this is all from like pin link technology. And it's alarming how much data they collect. They have a web of data brokers, they scrape, they do whatever, but they know an awful lot about these neighborhoods and these people. And then by association, other people, right? Your cell phone's next to, or your device is next to Mike's device. Is he involved in this whole, sort of plot to thwart ICE? Perhaps. Yeah. And then of course, you would expect that organizations like Fight for the Future and EFF would jump in and say, you can't do this, or you shouldn't do this, and try to thwart that. I don't know seriously how effective that'll be, but those guys typically do, jump in and try to help. But every American citizen should be standing up and saying, I don't want people to, not only do I not want my information used this way, but I don't even want people to have this data on me.
So here's the fundamental thing, though. What is ICE's charter? Let's be clear. ICE isn't the army, but it's not the police.
Right.
Right? ICE is Immigration and Border Control.
Mm-hmm.
Their job is to take people who are here unlawfully. They're not illegal. They're unlawful. Right. And put them in the system to remove them from the country if they don't belong here.
Right.
Or if they don't have a reason for being here. They have no charter to interact with protesters. They have no charter to track protesters. That's not their mission. It's not their job. What the hell are they doing it for?
But they're being allowed to do it. There are no parameters.
Well, they're being allowed to do it because we have a Congress and a court system that has failed us miserably.
100%. And I think that's the question that it has been, especially over the last few days, asked most frequently. Where the hell is Congress? Why are they allowing this kind of thing to happen?
Courts, they should be slapping down. Though I personally think the administration ignores court orders.
That's exactly right.
Let me just take it up to the next level and hope our friends in SCOTUS say it's okay. But the fact of the matter is, if you told me they were using social media and phone surveillance to track unlawful people who are in the country unlawfully, I could say, okay, well, that's part of their charter. I could see how that makes sense for their job. But if you're telling me they're doing it just to track protesters, GTFO.
I know. Well, exactly.
It has no business here. It's not part of their job.
Well, and
why are they wasting my money?
Well, that's another thing. So a lot of that money that was earmarked for ICE too is going toward this technology, right? And I mean, we already know that Congress administration has given ICE a tremendous amount of money. It's bigger than the military budgets of some countries, but a lot of that is going into, it's investing in this technology. And, I understand the business proposition, but geez, I have to wonder about some of these companies that are willing to sell this stuff. And you're right.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, like, can you mention some of them who are working with the government to help track down their own citizens?
I know in the this pin link, who are they affiliated with? They're affiliated with another company. Oh geez, it's left my mind. It'll come back.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No. It's okay. I had it right here, and it just flew out of my mind as at this age it often does. But pin link. But then there's also, like, in the EFF filings and stuff, they're talking about, they're talking about Palantir, of course.
Palantir was the one I was going to mention, but I was reluctant to because I wasn't quite sure.
No. That came up with the EFF stuff. So you would expect that they might be involved, right?
It's the usual suspects.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They don't care if they make a buck.
That's right.
That's their thing.
It does raise.
But another story. Let me ask this question. The reason you don't see outrage is because the administration is saying that we're only going after people who have criminal records.
Not true.
Not true. But, these other folks are just incidental people that get
collateral damage.
Not true.
They happen to trip over because they're going after people with criminal records. And so in Congress, they just sit there and they don't want to be on that side of that conversation where they're defending people who have criminal records, or at least that's what they'll be accused of.
So it's interesting, but I saw a study or a fact that the amount of people who've been detained by ICE versus the amount of them that have criminal records is below 10%.
Yeah. So I know some new numbers just came out because I was watching that too, Alan. They recently, like this week, talking about it. But I know that I think it's Cato that had done some of the research, and the numbers that I have been using is so of the people that that the Trump administration have deported, 70 something percent have no criminal convictions.
Those are deported, not detained.
That they're picking up and deporting. And then 5% have, serious criminal backgrounds. That's 5%. That's minuscule considering all the activity that you see going on out there.
No, I mean, you see them taking grandpas in their underwear out in the middle of winter in Minnesota who are here legally.
Compare that to Obama. Obama was considered the deporter. Oh, I'm sorry, John.
Sorry. There was a couple of police, thank goodness they spoke up in Minnesota, who mentioned they were being pulled over and asked for their proof of U.S. residence.
Because of their skin color and accent. This is what they're doing. And so just for a comparison to Obama, who was known as the deporter in chief, right? I mean, he deported a lot of people, but mostly I think tried to follow, the rules. There were some things, but at his first year, 50% of the people that he deported had criminal convictions. By his last year, it was like something like 92% had criminal convictions. He really truly focused on that element,
So that brings me to this area of talking about, let's compare, this is an insult to the Obama administration, but let's compare them to the Trump administration in terms of use of technology and in terms of efficiency. So AI is always about efficiency. This is an administration, though, that not only abuses the technology, but is totally incompetent in how they assess it. So this is a problem. I mean, it's a good tool to have, but when you put it in the hands of people who are morons, who have absolutely no idea what they're doing, or just overzealous, this is where we are.
So to be fair, or at least equal time, the DHS claims that Grandpa was hanging out with two sex offenders in that house and wouldn't identify who he was, so they just hoovered him up with the other two. That's what they claim.
That's what they say. Yeah, I don't know. They also said that ICE agent that shot Renee Good.
Yeah,
was-
had internal
had
bleeding, but
internal
then it
bleeding.
turned out he never went to the hospital.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
So-
he violated standard operating procedures because the first thing they teach those officers is don't stand in front of a car.
In front of a car. Well, come on. And it just logically, come on, it makes sense. If you shoot from at a car coming, say, towards you, if that's what you believe, and you incapacitate the driver, the chances of you getting mowed down and some innocent bystanders getting mowed down goes up.
That's why it's standard operating
That's
procedure.
right, exactly.
Look, from a legal perspective, right? You can make a case about the first. This isn't the. You know what? I'm going to drop it. This is not the venue to talk about that. Let's stick to tracking protesters. It's wrong. Mike, let's move on to our next segment today, though, because we're all riled up here on the gang. Let's talk about toys. Let's talk about toys. What could be wrong with toys, Mike?
Well, I mean, the state of California, there's a bill moving through that wants to ban the use of AI in toys because, well, we don't know what that AI has been trained to do. And there are already examples where that AI is telling kids that they should be probably doing things that they're not supposed to be doing. But John, we've been talking about AI and kids for a couple episodes now. In the series. What's your assessment here? I mean, according to the federal government, AI can do no wrong, and there are no state regulations that need to be applied.
Yeah. The government conveniently overlooks with these lawsuits involving people who've committed suicide because AI told them to do certain things to themselves. But in any event, so in California, there's a state senator named Steve Padilla who in a sense has kind of become a Ralph Nader of sorts. He's introduced this legislation that would impose or slap a 4-year moratorium on sale and manufacture of toys equipped with AI chatbot capabilities for kids. So the idea is that there is a growing concern that these chatbots in the form of toys are going to interact, and there have been instances of them interacting with kids and telling them to do things that were not quite right. So he's trying to get ahead of this problem. My concern always, and we go back to this, is the executive order to wipe out all state laws from our administration. But I think this is a real concern because we've got the character.ai case. We've got some OpenAI instances of people being influenced badly by their AI companion. And what more sinister way to manipulate a child than to do it through a toy? So kudos to at least addressing this, but I'm not sure how much teeth this has. But it at the very least, I like the idea of this bill being introduced. Just put it in our minds, because AI, I mean, we talk about this. Is it a person? Is it a machine? And in many cases, human beings believe it is a person, and they listen to it, and they are influenced by it.
And children are susceptible to that more.
Yes.
So. I mean, I was reading recently Michael Connolly, who wrote the Lincoln Lawyer series, then Bosch and all of that too. I was reading, he has a good one in Lincoln Lawyer where this case comes up about the influence of AI on a young person's psyche and on his actions. And some of the stuff that he brought up was so he did his research was so, relevant about, not only thinking or feeling like these things are real and listening to what they say, but how they're trained. Who is training like these AI things, especially for children? It's a group of, probably young men, some young women working at some company, right, that train these things. And so what are they putting? Is it age appropriate even? I mean, what kind of influence, where, what's their perspective, where it's coming from? And it makes, I think, toys and apps a little more, I don't know, I don't want to say evil, but destructive or potentially destructive for children. But when I was reading the book, and I know all this stuff, and they had the dialogue with the actual AI sort of, whatever she was, avatar or whatever, I was starting to I'd get into the dialogue like I was reading it as a real person. And I think, what about people who are super susceptible to that? And children especially. So I think it's a step in the right direction. I don't know that it'll carry any weight. But
I'm going to disagree here. Let me paint a picture for you. I'm out in the yard in San Quentin. Some big skinhead Aryan Brotherhood dude full of tattoos comes over to little dweeb like me and says, hey, what are you in for? I'm doing 3 to 5 for importing AI toys, AI-powered toys. Guys, this is like prohibition. You're not going to stop people from drinking.
So
Don't
what do you
treat
have
the
to do?
symptom. Hear me out. Don't treat the symptom. Treat the disease.
Okay.
The symptom here is these toys have AI built into them, and the AI is not safe. The cure is making AI safe. AI-empowered toys could be a great learning tool for kids. Probably one of the greatest educational tools we'll ever have. We got to get it straight and right about where are the guardrails there, where are the barriers, what it can do and what it can't do. Because if you could solve that, we could help solve illiteracy. We could help get kids reading before they go to school. We could make a great generation. So instead of saying, let's ban the toys, let's get AI right.
Well,
I mean, let's create a framework or some sort of guardrails where it's a responsible use, like anything.
and then how do you
Right.
enforce that? That's the other aspect of that. I agree with you, Alan, because there are great things that can come out
I'll
of
tell
it.
you how you enforce it. This is an old lawyer talking. Product liability, tort suits. You hit a couple of those and watch how quick those companies get religion.
Aren't
Well,
these-
and that was the sort of the point of Michael Connolly's book, right? It was a big court case, and that's why the Lincoln lawyer, stuck with it, was because he wanted to make a big splash so it would change things. He wanted it to go to the mat.
Product liability law.
Yeah,
I can't wait for 2030 for the courts to figure this out. So here's the other issue that I'm
We'll
gonna
be here
have with
before
this
you
whole
know
thing.
it.
The whole issue also is, where are these toys made? I mean, you're talking about like they're made in the Valley when actually they're made in China somewhere.
In China, that's
Oh, what's
exactly,
going on?
yes.
So let me ask a serious question of my panel, of my gang here today.
Mhm.
Is China the boogeyman?
Yeah.
Do you
Yeah,
think there are
we have to
Chinese
create- we have to
people?
create an
Let me
enemy.
ask you something.
You always have
You-
to create an enemy, and they're
Do you
very.
think there's
and they're a convenient
Chinese?
one. Yeah.
But John, do you think there are Chinese toy manufacturers sitting here like this and saying, let's create AI toys that'll destroy those Americans? Because the same toys they're making for Americans, they're making for their own kids.
I mostly think they want to sell a lot of schlock, and that's what it is. And that's the driver. And there probably are some people with evil intent, that see a chance to exploit some of this.
But it's too easy to just blame the Chinese.
We're just demonizing them in general. I mean,
Yeah.
AI is a very
No,
convenient way to do it.
That's just too simple. Here's the thing. So no matter what tech it is, the Chinese government gets access to that tech. So it's not just some simple toy that some manufacturer made. I don't think that they're sitting there doing, the evil doctor thing that he's talking about. But the problem is the kid interacts with that toy, the data goes back to China, and then that winds up in some repository somewhere to train some AI models, and then things can get really ugly. So that's where the issue is going to be.
Yeah.
Spoken
Yeah,
like a real Cold War warrior.
It's a Manchurian candidate on a kid's scale.
And a kid's toy.
We're living the Manchurian candidate. Let's go easy on
I
that.
know.
But no, seriously, I do think there's a bit of cutting off your nose to spite your face here by just blanketing and saying no AI powered toys. Let's get the AI right, and let have a board.
But in fairness to the senator, I think that's what he means. He doesn't want to blunt innovation, but he wants to do it responsibly. So I think he's trying to get ahead of it, or just bring up this notion. I mean, I'm sure he doesn't think he's going to solve all these problems, but I think it's something to consider, like in any type of use of technology.
Well,
I think it is the value of it is it brings it to the public eye, right? To raise that kind of issue. And that's
Mike, go ahead. No, but I haven't seen Mike this fired up in a while. Let's let him roll a bit.
Well, I'm just going to say, I could get an AI toy from Mexico or Canada, but the problem is it's too expensive because of the tariffs.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
So maybe the tariffs are the answer after all on all of it.
Yeah.
So we've come full circle. We've come full circle. What a great time to end this episode. Teri, Jon, Mike, thanks for entertaining us and joining my depraved kind of ranting and ravings and balkanization explanations. Thank you for watching. We've got Techstrong Gang. We're not in Davos, but we've got a lot more to cover, and we'll see you tomorrow on The Gang. This is Alan Schummel. We're out.